Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Scenes at Rocksalt. Today we're going to fill you in on how we come up with creating a new site or opening a new site, and I suppose the decision making that goes on before we get the keys, before we agree a lease, as a what's the right fit for us and for Rocksalt. So we're really excited that we actually have a new site coming on in a couple of weeks. We get the keys on Monday, and it's going to be in Carrickmacross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about what's been happening over the last couple of months to get that deal across the line, and then we're also going to do a little docu-series showcasing from when we get the keys on Monday to the next couple of months of it opening, and hopefully at the end of it we'll have a thriving business to show you. I'll start basically with the most important part for us, and what we always consider, is the area and the location. So this particular venture is in Carrick. As I'm sure most people know, we were in Carrick. So we had the Avenue in Carrick there for the last 2 years, built up a really, really good business, and it was going really well for us. So Carrick was always an area that we wanted to get back into. We didn't want to leave. We were doing really well, and it just came to nuts and bolts that the lease was coming to an end. So we'd put out a video on our last day in Carrick saying that we would love to be back, and it's a perfect area for us. We were inundated by everybody in the community in Carrick saying, Dan, there's a perfect place here, we should look at this place. We saw a few places, but one that really stood out and was already a successful business was the Greenmount on the main street in Carrick. So we talked to the guys there, and over the course of probably 4 months, we got to this stage now, from the initial conversation that we had about it, how it could work, what they needed to get from it, what we need to get from it, and then going to view the site, check out the premises, talk about the team that was already there. There was so much involved, but for me, the gut feeling was it was an ideal location, ideal premises, and we already knew that the area worked. So Carrick, we're delighted to get back to, and it just seems like a no-brainer for us. So once we kind of decided that, we knew this was the right location, this is the right place to have a look at, and they're also the right people to work with. The next biggest question is, what's the cost involved in setting it up? How do we what's the investment needed? What's the payback on the investment? What do we need to break even? How much do we need to take every week for it to be successful? There's so much things that you have to really consider. So I suppose what we looked at first was the setup costs. So that's everything from your construction, your painters, your decorators. Thankfully, it was slightly lower for the likes of Carrick because they've already got a lot of the furniture we can use, a lot of the equipment's already there, so there was no big fit out in terms of the kitchen side of things, which was a big plus for us, and certainly limits the damage control that we would have as well if it didn't work. So setup costs involved your construction, your painters. We're also looking at putting a new coffee dock in. We need a new machine, we need our till systems. All in all, we were looking at between 21 to 25k before we even get the doors open, and that's only just your initial kind of setup costs. That's not paying the team, that's not hiring the team, that's not paying wages. So we look at that a lot. So that's pretty much your initial investment that needs to go in, which is key. So we know what we need to go have in the bank before we even open. That plus, obviously, you need to have at least enough probably to get you through the first 2 months, because in a restaurant, it's a lot of there's a lot of costs associated with even opening the doors, stocking up all your goods that you need, between your cups, your produce, everything else. Thankfully, we have a Rocksalt ecosystem as well, which will definitely help and support that growth as well, and especially at the very start to get us up and running. You're then looking at your construction costs. So that's everything that we just talked about as well. So that's something that you really have to focus on. So you're nearly talking about 40 grand in terms of your costs before you open the door, just to get you through the first couple of weeks, at least. And that's going into a business where it's already kind of established, and you're going in with a kitchen and with a fit out and everything else. It's a completely different story if you are looking to build a whole new restaurant. Then you're really looking at business loans and different things like that, or capital expenditure. Thankfully, we don't have to go a huge deal into that on this project. The next thing you kind of look at is your potential income. So you're looking at how much are we able to turn every week? What's the cost going to be involved in that? So we have a good system within Rocksalt where we kind of know that if we're looking at taking a business that's maybe doing 25k a week, we know that our food cost needs to be in and around that 30%, our staff cost needs to be in around that 35%, and then you've got everything else that's coming down the list as well, do you know? Then all of a sudden you need to start looking at what our target is. So like that, we're saying if it's going to be 25 grand a week, that's what our target is. Then you're also budgeting on that. So you're creating budgets, and then that's where you're going to start looking at your labour and the team you need to be able to fulfill that 25 grand a week business, which takes a lot of costs. Again, you're talking about 35% on your labour costs, but you need the right team in there to deliver that. After that, then you're looking at the deal. So very, very important. We've been bid a couple of times. We were in Carrickmacross, for example, and the lease didn't exactly favour us at the end. When it didn't work, we had to pay out quite a bit of money to get out of that lease. So you learn from these kind of mistakes, and we've been able to structure a deal that's fair for us, but it's also fair for the guys who own the premises as well, and it was what they were looking for too. So there always has to be, when you do a deal, and what I've learned, certainly the hard way going through this, it really has to benefit both parties. Otherwise, something could fall through the cracks very, very quickly. And unfortunately, we've got some really bad experiences with that, but we've also got some great experiences with that between Blackrock and working with Connor, working with Sean in our lease in Dundalk, with Little Rocksalt and Niall. It's been all fantastic. So we kind of know what you're looking for. And then once you structure that deal, it goes off to the solicitors, they do up proposals. But once we got the heads of terms in terms of how much we need to pay every week, what the length of the deal is, what's included in it, and then who pays different things, like your building insurance, your structure, if something goes wrong, who's liable for the cost on that. So that all has to be ironed out at the start, which is a good learning curve. And then goes to the solicitors, you draw up the lease, you sign it off, and at least you're protected. You put that away and you just focus on the business. So after you've got the deal all done and the lease all signed, we then very much in terms of operational mode and looking at timelines. So operational, the business, then we're really looking at kind of driving the business forward. What can we do? How do we push on? What team do we need to put in place? And then we're also, big part of it is the timeline. So as we speak to you now, our timeline is very much, we want to be open within 4 weeks. So there's not a huge fit out that needs to be done. There's not a huge construction. There is a bit of work to be done. And there's also a lot of training with the team and putting the right people in place. So we're forecasting and budgeting within that startup cost that we're going to take about 4 weeks to open. The longer that goes on, if we go to 5, 6, 7 weeks, all of a sudden our budget initially is going up and up and up, because we're going to have to pay wages, we're going to have to be paying rent anyway, which we're not, which we didn't take into account. We're going to have to pay more on the construction side of things. We're going to have gas bills, electricity bills, that all still needs to be paid. So it's very, very important that we've budgeted and given ourselves the right time to get it right. So that's where we're kind of at the moment. Really something that we're really, really excited about, and I think it's going to be a great success. So that is our initial deal. In terms of getting Carrick up, that's our thinking behind how we can get Carrick up and running, why we want to open up in Carrick. the building, the costs that are involved in it, and yeah, here's to hopefully what will be a really successful journey. And this is certainly a project that I'm really excited about. I can't wait to get back to Carrick, and I really want this to do well. So check out, we'll do as much documenting as we can and give you a good behind the scenes as we go along this journey in Carrick. So see you all soon.